Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Denny Carter, Kyle Dvorchak, Patrick Kerrane, as we get ready to preview the entire Week 8 slate. As we do every week, we're going to go in depth on some of the week's biggest games, including 49ers at the Rams and Chargers hosting the Seahawks. This is kind of a stretch, what I had to refer to as a big game. Even fewer big games than usual this week, but they're all big on our hearts, and we're going to touch on all the hot-button fantasy-relevant players. And it's an interesting week because – there aren't many blue chip matchups, but actually a lot of interesting matchups. We're getting to the point of the season where we have a lot of data. We have some new faces around town. Kadarius Toney is a Chief. That's going to jumpstart his career, right? So let's do that. What's the over under for Kadarius Toney receptions rest of the season? Kerrane, I'll set it at 121.5. You think over under that?
I mean, how many games is he playing? These hamstring injuries just to get him out of there. They just wrapped him up and said we're trying to trade this guy.
So I actually think that the hamstring injuries were a fiction created both by Toney and the team, because
neither of them liked each other. It's perfect for both of them.
Right. The team didn't want anything to do with him. They didn't want him on the field for some reason, despite them using David Sills as their wide receiver 2 or 3 in recent weeks. But and I'm sure he was like, okay, fine. I have 2 hurt hamstrings, so. I think those hamstrings could get better in the next couple weeks.
Well, Andy Reid, such an offensive innovator. By the way, I misspoke. It is not the Chargers hosting the Seahawks. It is the Giants. And
you said Chargers, and I got really concerned. I was like, I haven't prepped for something. And the funny thing is, in your email, you said that there was only one team on bye, and I was like, but there are 31 teams.
I meant one game.
Teams have to play another team. So how?
One game on bye is what I meant, guys. And again, with the email, airing my email dirty laundry in front of all these people. I hope you're happy.
Hey, look, we all got the email this time. That's an improvement.
Oh, man.
Boom, zinger. That's a callback to a small joke we made a month ago.
Yeah. Audience will surely remember it.
There are 6 people who understand that, and we give a shout out to those people.
We do give a shout out to those people, and we give a shout out to Andy Reid, who I think his innovation will be adding a 3rd hamstring to Kadarius Toney as a way to offset the already strained 2, but then of course he will just strain the 3rd. And
Sky Moore isn't using his hamstrings,
right?
No, he can use. He's got 2 hamstrings to spare now.
Yeah,
really,
Kerrane,
you took my joke.
Kerrane, I was gonna say you appeared rather. I think the scientific term is down bad before the show when you had a tweet about Sky Moore and his fantasy value and when we one day might find it. Yeah. I believe it was when he was a petrified mummy thousands of years in the future.
Yeah, it was not great for Sky Moore. I mean, you do think okay, Kadarius Toney, it's not just the hamstring thing. I mean, he's mercurial, we'll say. But Andy Reid, it's you give him a super athlete who's a little mercurial. He's done pretty well with those guys over the years. So, not just Tyreek Hill, Terrell Owens. There's a few of these guys that have succeeded.
You had one other
Andy Reid.
I said you had one other example.
Well, both those guys were pretty darn good, weren't they?
Josh Gordon is well on his way to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
After a stint in Kansas City.
Easy.
By the way, the analytics, you referred to mercurial. Kerrane, the analytics agree with you. Where someone pointed out on Twitter that Kadarius Toney has more songs on Spotify than he does career receptions.
There
so
you
the
go.
Analytics not really working in Kadarius Toney's favor. And we are working in our own favor as we just start the show. So we get the show underway. And we begin in Los Angeles, where the Rams will be coming off bye as 1.5-point home underdogs to the 49ers and their hordes of traveling fans who will once again be taking over what is called SoFi Stadium. There's plenty to talk about the Rams, but Kerrane, I want to begin with the Niners, who will be playing their first full game with Christian McCaffrey after Kyle Shanahan decided his playbook was too complicated for CMC to receive more than 10 touches in Week 7. Do we expect CMC's workloads to remain the same as they were in Carolina? And who might be hurt the most in the Niners skill core as McCaffrey kind of gobbles up some of these high-value touches? There's really kind of a lot at stake here and a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, so, I mean, I had a kind of different read on the McCaffrey 10 touches. This guy was literally in Carolina. Now, who knows which state of Carolina, but somewhere in the Carolina area. That's where he was on Thursday. And then on Sunday, he's getting 10 touches. I think that's
this is his 7th year in the league. He's kind of the consensus best running back. I don't think, to me, this is the exact opposite. It was just Kyle Shanahan Like
this is insane. This is insane. What do you think he was going to do? He was there. He wasn't even ready at the beginning of practice. He's an
NFL running to hand him the ball, like throw him a check down. Like this is not that complicated.
Schefter didn't think he was going to play. Schefter was like insinuating, I don't even think he's playing.
That was all performance art. No one in their right mind thought they would trade.
We are all true running backs don't matter degenerates, right? We all have this sort of agreed upon belief that running backs are largely a portion of their system and the positions they're put in. But Pat has reached a new level of degenerate where he's like, bang his face into another player. Just jam him in.
Seriously, it's Kyle Shanahan is making it too complicated. There are some universal concepts that I'm sure Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Shanahan both understand.
He gave him 10 touches.
Yeah, he usually takes 25.
He led the backfield in touches.
He didn't know the names of the guys in front of him. He yet to remember the names of his offensive linemen.
I think it was Kyle Shanahan.
He walked into the locker room like 15 minutes before the game started, and they were like, "Here's your uniform, I guess. Go ahead." Like this. Oh, by the way, this is Debo.
He was standing on Stanford's campus. Like he was just hanging out on campus. He didn't even show up to Friday's practice until midway through the practice. Like, oh yeah, he came out of the locker room halfway through practice. So he got 1.5 practices, the second of which was the Saturday walkthrough. This is degenerate. Your brain is rotten.
Right. I'm sorry to derail the show. Kerrane, will it be a normal workload? Who is CMC hurting in San Francisco? I guess we should mention Deebo Samuel's questionable with an injury for week 8.
I think he's hurting everybody because the only reason that you trade for Christian McCaffrey and by like Kevin Cole was saying by the PFF metrics is equivalent of the 10th overall pick by PFF's WAR metric, and I think by like the Jimmy Johnson chart it was still the equivalent of a first round pick. So it's somewhere between. It's a first round pick they gave up basically for this dude,
and a lot of money committed to him going down the line.
Yeah, maybe you can give him more than 10 touches.
I think they will with a full week of practice. But I do, the only logical thing, and who knows, Kyle Shanahan does some weird stuff sometimes, so maybe logic isn't the best way to think about this. But it only makes sense if they're going to use him as a receiver. Jeff Wilson was running back 8 in rush yards over expected per attempt. McCaffrey's running back 29. So it's not like if you're, again, obviously he's with the Panthers.
Environment.
Environment. He'll be better, but you've got a top 10 running back already. You just need, presumably you're like, well, I want a guy who can also be utilized in the passing game. So I think you're not going to see the same level of kind of accumulation stats that you got in Carolina because they were just like only throwing to him. They basically just gave up and were like, we're only going to throw to McCaffrey at this massive league leading target share. So he's not going to have that, but he should be in scoring position more often. So I think it's like a slightly different profile, but still one that'll be, a lot of receiving value. He'll still have a very strong target share. And I think that's probably going to hurt the San Francisco receivers because that is going to take Debo out of this like hybrid-y screen role and make him a true receiver. Now they're going to be cannibalizing each other. They're going to be fighting for volume on a week-to-week basis. And target volume here, or target competition, is pretty strong. Brandon Ayuk leads the team in first read targets per route. George Kittle leads the team in yards per route run on non-screen routes. They're both very capable receivers. I think Deebo Samuel's still the best of them, but I think boom bust all around. I think they all have weekly ceilings, but it just can be a real pain to try and predict it.
So Deebo has a hamstring injury for week 8, so we don't even know if he's going to play, but do we still regard Deebo Samuel as a wide receiver 1, probably, right? Does anyone have a take on this?
He's only been there once this year, I think, as a wide receiver 1 in 12-team leagues. I would say he's a really good wide receiver 2 option, but I don't know about wide receiver 1.
I agree with that.
I don't know if I've ever seen this much competition for high-value touches in an offense where you have 4 guys just genuinely worthy of like being your first read, basically, or like the first guy you scheme up touches for, if you include Brandon Ayuk. I guess some people might not include Brandon Ayuk in that, but yeah, I don't know how even Kyle Shanahan's going to divvy this up, but I think Kerrane was probably absolutely right that by far the most stable is going to be the running back, of course, and almost certainly that's going to include a lot of receptions because, as Kerrane said, the trade almost doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense if you're going to acquire Christian McCaffrey and not throw to him. But yeah, I'm troubled if I'm a Deebo Samuel, or especially, does this affect does this knock Brandon Ayuk like out of the top 36 or no? Is he?
I feel like it
is
has
he
to go
less
all the way
effective?
down the chain. We can't say that like, oh, this is bad for Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, who I think are better than Brandon Ayuk. Not to say Brandon Ayuk has been impressive this year, but I think they're probably better at just generally commanding targets. So to say it wouldn't affect him would seem to be sort of illogical. I think it cascades.
It's
all the way
bad
down
for
the
everyone.
chain. Yes.
Is there a chance that, let's go full galaxy brain? Is there a chance that it's good for everyone? And like this makes the offense a lot better.
No, Shanahan's whole thing is that he turns any UDFA practice squad running back into a hero. And anytime he's actually spent up on running backs, they haven't been that good. So like maybe this is the exception to the rule that like McCaffrey is so good and you add Shanahan, but
he's not a big play guy. It's not like you're adding like if you were adding like I don't know.
He's been in such bad
Raheem
environments,
Mostert.
Pat. And he's been
or
hurt.
like Kenneth Walker. Like if they traded for Kenneth Walker or something, you'd be like, all right, big play, 2-down guy. Like that could actually help the offense, is adding some big plays, adding some scoring. Or if they added Debo, let's say Debo, like they already had McCaffrey and they traded for Debo, then you're like, yeah, that could actually help the offense. It's now going to be so unstoppable through the air. McCaffrey's just, he soaks up volume. That's his whole thing.
Look, we all love McCaffrey. We were all saying he was clearly the 101 this summer, but he was not the 101 because he makes an offense significantly better. In fact, like tons of running back targets and tons of running back carries are not a particularly good thing for an offense. It's the year of our Lord 2022. You want to be passing the football, and if you're passing it, you don't want to be throwing it 1 to -1 ADOT throws to running backs. Those are like minus EV plays if they're taken at the cost of Kittle attempts or of Debo attempts, even Brandon Ayuk attempts, just as far as like scheming up football stuff goes for the efficiency of an offense. So like, no, I don't think it's good for the offense, for the fantasy aspects of the offense. Probably not even like, I really don't think it moves the needle that much for this offense at all.
The 49ers only run 60 plays a game on average, which ranks 23rd in the league. So like there's just, unless everybody's scoring touchdowns every time they touch the ball, it's just so many guys are not going to get there on a given week, especially if Christian McCaffrey comes in and dominates touches.
I will just say, I mean, if he can make Jeff Wilson number 8 and like what was it, carry
some nerd loser
carry
stuff.
over expectation. You're talking about Christian McCaffrey like not being a big play guy recently. I mean, I do think honestly a lot of that was I think he could still be a big play guy. I think McCaffrey's probably just saying totally nuclear. And it kind of
do wonder.
Everyone else.
Maybe it could help the offense. I don't think it will, but it could if they just pass a little bit more, right? Like if they're,
I think it'll help the offense. Jeff
they're
Wilson sucks, just to be honest. Like whatever the metrics say, he's not good.
He's run well, man.
Good.
He's ripped off some long runs, like
because he's set up for success.
Pat, you're never allowed in a spreadsheet again. My spreadsheets, you'll not be found in them.
Right.
There's a reason why he's like the 4th. Like it's why he's like after every other running back gets hurt. Which
Jeff Wilson won me a dynasty championship 2 years ago, so you shut your mouth.
Wait. I do have to say, Jeff Wilson's not bad. Also, I tend to agree with Daugherty in saying that Christian McCaffrey is going to go ballistic.
I do think he's just
he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
We've been talking about the 49ers for way too long. But Kyle, we got to ask, Kyren Williams, is he going to lead this backfield upon his activation? We don't know if it's going to be this weekend. Is Kyren Williams, who's been kind of like bubbling underneath the surface in fantasy circles, do you think he will get more touches than Darrell Henderson when he enters this backfield?
I would bet against it in his very first game. I mean, he didn't get a full off season. I believe it was the broken foot. Then the ankle injury stopped him after playing like 1 special team snap in week 1. There's just not a lot of reps for a rookie who, I mean, they traded up for him, but they still took him in the early day three, I believe. So it's not like he has some sort of level of draft capital that commands touches immediately. On the other hand, I do think it will not be long before we reach Kyren Williams leading this backfield, because assuming Cam Akers' situation continues to be he is not part of the team, Darrell Henderson just isn't it. I mean, he ranks 48th out of 49 running backs in yards per route run, 41st in PFF receiving grade. And that's kind of what I assumed he would have done at least a little bit well, because he's not particularly great between the tackles. He's 41st in rush yards over expected per attempt. And we kind of saw that last week where they had 8 different Rams record a carry. Throw away the Matt Stafford. I think it was all Neal's. 7 different guys. They were scheming everybody touches because you don't want to give Darrell Henderson even 15 carries. So I think it might take a little bit, but he has to be the long-term plan. We even sort of got reports of that in the offseason, that he was the eventual replacement to Darrell Henderson. That's when Cam Akers was still in the fold. But still, I think that has to be the plan going forward, because Darrell Henderson has shown nothing that is commanding of him getting more than a dozen touches in Kyren's first game back, let alone when Kyren gets up to speed in weeks 9, 10, 11. Assuming that's kind of the timeline he comes back at. He has his 21-day window open, so technically he could not be back for another 3 weeks. I hope it's sooner.
Two very quick. I regret it. I should not have said Jeff. I should not have used the S word with regards to a professional NFL player here at home as a blogger boy. But yeah, I don't think he's that great.
Especially since you're wrong.
I know that's true. It doesn't help that I'm wrong. Denny, real quick, any reason to point chase Allen Robinson with his big game before the Rams Week 7 bye?
I wanted to say yes. I was looking for some reason to say yes because he saw a 26%. He saw a target on 26% of his routes last week. That's a big increase over his 16% rate over the course of the season. But that all came with a banged up Tyler Higbee running only about half the routes the last time they played before their bye week. We saw Allen Robinson's slot rate increase by a significant margin, actually, over his past 2 games. He's now running nearly half of his routes from the slot, which is a little bit surprising. And the Niners have been drubbed by opposing slot receivers. Primarily, I think that's Cooper Kupp's situation there. But I still think that he's like a desperation wide receiver, like bottom wide receiver 3 or high end wide receiver 4, if that makes sense.
The Jaguars and Broncos head across the pond, accompanied by a truly unseemly 39.5 total for the worst London matchup in recent memory. Kyle, I just made it sound like nothing is popping in this matchup. But what is popping in this matchup?
No, you got it. Move on. No, I mean, Etienne, that's what's fun on the Jacksonville side. We're very excited to see Travis Etienne. Last week, it was the final week of James Robinson being in town. You would not have known it by looking at the box score. You would have thought he was gone at least 2 weeks ago because Etienne saw 93% of the running back carries, 80% of the snaps, and 83% of the running back targets. So it was very clear that he was the guy. Even you could argue maybe they had plans to trade James Robinson regardless of whether or not they obviously knew where he was going. I don't really care. Etienne had been a more explosive, more heralded prospect. Things were going to trend this way eventually. It was just a matter of time. Of course, things worked out well for them to be able to move on from Robinson at that exact same time. Maybe we probably do see more of JaMychal Hasty than we did last week and than we have earlier in the season. But I still think Etienne, as far as this week goes, like you're starting him every single week. We talked about him on the show on Tuesday, probably because of the offense in the game total is more of like that RB 13 to 15. But like, you're not complaining about that once, like, if they get in more exciting games, which this game looks like about as unexciting as it can be, you'll probably be considering pushing him into that, 9, 10, 11, 12 range. On the other side of the ball, I don't know if you call it changing of the guard, but it's possible that in terms of the receiving target share, Jerry Jeudy over the past 3 weeks, 24% target share, 31% air yard share, both of those top Courtland Sutton. Looking at the whole scope of the year, it's not as obvious that Jerry Jeudy is the guy.
He is, Kyle, my favorite stat of the week is he is outgaining him over the past 4 games.
I think we call this the changing of the team. That's what's happening right now. They're auditioning him. Please.
And the thing is, like, unless he gets traded, though, it's not like I'm not supremely confident that we should accept this more recent 3-game sample as the better sample than the earlier 4-game sample or whatever. To me, it just makes it more murky. I don't know. I just want one of them to emerge as the guy, because if they're both splitting it turned out to be just a terrible pie, I don't want to play either of them. The only guy I'm excited about is because he plays a position that's absolutely dreadful. It's Greg Dulcich, 17% targets there, target share. Talking. Yeah, I know. This is a little more exciting. 17% target share, 74% route run in 2 games. Tight end sucks. Play Greg Dulcich. Move on.
Man, every year we just glom on to like 3 or 4 tight end 2s, and that's pretty much the only thing we're talking about by the end of the year. Dan Arnold says hello.
Yeah, Dolch Daddy. Was that what you're going to try to do?
No.
Oof. Can we edit that out?
Just call him Gregors.
No, I think we got to go with Dolch Daddy. That's kind of unbeatable. What is?
He's doomed.
By the way, for Denny and I on Galaxy Range this week, we really went in depth on the Broncos. And by in depth on the Broncos, we mean Russell Wilson's behavior on a plane.
Degenerate. I can't believe this.
Seriously, like that made me mad. That made me mad. Sleep is important. Like, you can't just march up and down an aisle of a plane.
He needs to sleep, but the other people need to sleep.
Right.
No, that's what I mean.
He thinks
he's decided he's not sleeping, but
right. He thinks that everybody.
He's made that decision for everybody else too.
Chronic sleep deprivation.
And a bunch of their receivers like quote tweeted the tweet about it and was like, "No cap, he actually did this." And like, you don't say that if you're happy that he's doing that.
You know what? You also don't say that if you're asleep when it happened, because he woke them up. That would be crazy to do to a group of strangers. I mean, it would be unforgivable to do to a group of strangers. He did it to his teammates. He did it to the guys he's playing professional football with.
Man,
I'm ready to go on First Take, whatever. I will. I'm ready to go full TV pundit on this. I'm legit mad.
that was a mic drop moment from Kerrane. That was a much needed rant on. Just for the love of God, just if you're awake, then just drink a cup of coffee and then read, man. Like, my God. Anyways, in one of the more embarrassing moments of the Aaron Rodgers era, the Packers arrive in Buffalo as 11.5-point underdogs. Patrick Kerrane. Can we trust any Packers pass catcher with Alan Lazard missing back-to-back practices with a shoulder injury? Just what is going on with the Green Bay Packers, Pat?
Yeah, well, didn't he say something like we're going to be needing to reduce some snaps?
I have the quote if you guys want it real quick.
We do.
Yeah.
Quote, guys who are making too many mistakes should not be playing. Got to start.
Is he asking to be benched? I think he wants out of the game. So I'm not seeing a lot of great stuff from Rodgers recently.
He says, got to start cutting some reps. Maybe guys who aren't playing, maybe we give them a chance.
I'll just say he's lucky Russell Wilson is taking a lot of heat for him in the media right now.
I mean, who is he talking about? Is he talking about Amari Rodgers? That's the only guy?
Talking about Dobbs, right?
Got to be
Dobbs.
No.
I'm
sorry. Well, I mean, he's saying Dobbs needs to go.
Oh, who does he want in place of Dobbs?
He wants Jay Kumro. He's going to Buffalo. Is Kumro still on the Bills? Like, Rodgers is going to be crying.
Kumro's knee is really busted up, I thought.
Well, wasn't there a report that he wanted AJ Green? He wanted them to trade for AJ Green.
Oh my!
Someone on Chip Chaser last night said that he must have been tripping and got his colors mixed up. He meant AJ Brown.
That's funny. That would be the most washed duo in history.
So, Kerrane,
Rodgers to Green.
What's going on in this game? Bills. Packers.
Now, the copy that I have, it says, Denny, what's going on in this game?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Denny. Craig Dennis Carter, of course.
If it seemed like I was stalling a little bit.
Famed expert. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Right. So I did want to say that Amari Rodgers ran 8 routes last week, which is more than usual. And he saw 3 targets against the Commanders. So maybe he is talking about Amari Rodgers, just putting it out there. And also Alan Lazard has not practiced this week. He's going to be iffy, even if he does. If he logs the Friday practice, he'll probably play.
I do have a note on Lazard. I did the Packers game last week, and through the first 3 quarters of the game, Lazard was the only wide receiver with a target.
Wow,
in that game, which I mean goes to the
right.
He's not interested in throwing to Dobbs.
So in what will likely be pass heavy negative script again this week against Buffalo, with Randall Cobb out, with Lazard maybe out, with Romeo Dobbs no longer an option, I guess, in Aaron Rodgers' eyes. Aaron Jones is probably the main beneficiary. He saw an increase in pass routes last week against Washington and was targeted on an incredible 48% of his routes on his way to 9 catches for 53 yards and 2 touchdowns. The touchdowns are nice, but that's not what we're focused on. We're focused on the incredible usage. So, he could be targeted a bunch again this week. It seems like they're committed to him as the pass catching back as of this second. Who knows if that'll carry over into this week. But I don't know where else you look here in the Packers offense, in a terrible spot.
And Denny, I'm being told that we start our Buffalo Bills. That's what I've been told.
You're starting the Bill. What you were starting the Bills defense? Is that what you're saying?
No, I just talking about the Bills.
You can do that too.
But the Bills side of the ball, there's not much to say about.
If under the team column it has BUF or any other abbreviation that looks like that, put them in the line.
You're good. Right. I would say that Devin Singletary is in a really good spot. He's seen a lot of good usage in positive game script, so get him in there.
I also think Dawson Knox is interesting. He had a season high route participation last week, and Khalil Shakir was kind of back to like 20% of the routes as he had been when Crowder was around. So it seems like maybe the replacement plan for Crowder is just for Knox to be back in the role that he was in last year, and Isaiah McKenzie was in a very similar role to when Crowder was healthy. So potentially now that could flip, because Shakir's talented and maybe they want to get him more involved for whatever reason this week, but definitely feel a little bit better about Dawson Knox.
The undefeated Philadelphia Eagles come off by as 10.5-point home favorites against what could charitably be deemed the interesting but struggling Steelers. Denny Carter, I'm reading my own prompt correctly. We will get to the Eagles in a second, but I want to know if we have seen any trends at the Steelers wideouts post Kenny Pickett. I don't think Pickett has been good, but he has definitely been good for George Pickens and Chase Claypool.
Yes. Pickens still has that dog. It's true. And
some sources are saying, woof, woof.
Right. I've asked my dog and he has confirmed. He may have heard my dog a second ago. Sorry about that.
Someone just please cancel me.
Trying desperately to hit the mute button.
Now, Pat, do you have kids?
George Pickens has seen 28% of the targets with Pickett under center. He's seen a 10.8 adjusted yards per attempt. That's compared to a 35% share for Deontay Johnson, who has seen an adjusted yards per attempt of 0.63 when catching passes from Kenny Pickett. So really, really quite different usage. Now, Kenny Pickett is doing two things. He's not really throwing downfield that often. Only 11% of his passes have gone over 20 yards. And he's insanely bad at it. He's completed 5 of 14.
Mrs. Lincoln, it's a good play. It's a good play.
Yeah. 5 of 14 downfield throws for 0 touchdowns and, folks, 5 interceptions. So he is quite terrible, maybe overall, but definitely down the field. But you know what? He's giving Pickens, enough, I think enough targets for him to have low end wide receiver 2 viability. And I know Deontay Johnson's frustrating, but you got to keep starting him because he's seeing so many targets. The regression will hit eventually.
No, it won't, man. It's
in the fantasy bylaws. You are actually legally obligated to do it.
Yeah,
his targets. His targets are seriously just like junk mail. Like, oh, great, another ad savers thing. Yeah, just right in the recycling. That's what Deontay Johnson targets are. I mean, do we in 2 weeks? Are we to be ranking George Pickens upside higher or this junk volume for Deontay Johnson?
No, it's already the upside's already higher. Like if
the upside's higher, I just meant in terms of like, do we have to force that upside ahead of the supposed floor of Deontay Johnson?
Dude, when you can lock in 3 for 22 every single week in, week out, you got to do it.
It would be nice if Deontay Johnson didn't just fall down immediately after catching.
I would prefer if he could catch an occasional target, but he's still getting them.
Denny, like you said, if he ever added a single yard after the catch,
I mean, he actually runs backwards. Like when he catches it, he starts running the opposite in the wrong direction.
Don't put it in the paper that I was mad at Kyle Shanahan, by the way. So we're talking about the Steelers pass catchers. Kerrane, do we expect anything to change with the Eagles' approach post-bye? Or can each of A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert keep getting home? Jalen Hurts only has 6 passing touchdowns in 6 games.
Yeah, so I think the Eagles are a very interesting team because they seem to have a couple of different modes to their attack. We've seen them go run heavy twice against the Jaguars in that bad weather game, against the Cowboys, which is very much a run funnel defense as teams generally try to avoid that pass rush. But we've also seen them lean into the short passing game against the Cardinals when they were having trouble protecting Hurts. I think that is really kind of the key here. Can the Eagles protect Hurts? Can they stop defenses from getting to him quickly? They're going up against a defense this week that ranks 27th in pass rush grade and 26th in quick pressure rate. I think if they're able to protect Hurts, which they should be able to in this matchup, we could see the return of more of a downfield passing game, which would really be helpful for A.J. Brown, would also be helpful for Devontae Smith. And I mean, it's just great for everybody if they can start throwing downfield. Dallas Goedert, they like to use a lot on screens. That should open up that for that type of attack. So to me, this sets up as like a really, really nice spot for A.J. Brown. I could see him absolutely going nuclear here. I think he's one of the best plays at any position this week.
Danny, I should have asked you this earlier. Pat Freiermuth becoming a tight end 1 again. Yes. Is this happening?
Sort of. I mean, Pittsburgh is 13th in pass rate over expected. So I think there should be enough pass volume there to fuel like a tertiary pass catcher like Freiermuth. He has 9 targets in each of his past 2 full games. Remember, he missed most of one after, I think, suffering a head injury and then was out the following week. Last week, he ran a route on 76% of Pickett's dropbacks. So you could definitely do worse than the Muth.
Oh, man. That's You might surpass the woof comment I made, just to be honest.
The Muth? Are we not?
Everyone's called him the Muth, Pat. You don't know that?
Yeah,
I mean, the kids.
The kids do. My 4-year-old son, who has never once looked at the screen when a sport was playing, calls him the Muth. By the way, Bennett, we got to get you interested in sports, man. Come on, man.
My son's 9, and we're not there yet.
Do it for daddy, please. Anyways, that's toxic masculinity.
There you go.
The Dolphins and Lions are a pair of offenses that were supplying early season fantasy points before struggling of late, Patrick Kerrane. They're meeting up in Detroit with a 51.5 total. What is intriguing in this football game?
So the Dolphins, in all of the games where Tua has finished, have been pass first in all 4 of those games. Now, they did have their lowest pass rate over expected of just 1% against the Steelers in those 4 games, but still 6% pass rate over expected across the 4 games. Very much kind of a pass first, pass heavy even team. So that's interesting because the Lions, you can do whatever you want. It's up to you how you attack the Lions because they're bad at everything. So I'm hoping, based on this pass rate over expected split, that we'll see the Dolphins attack primarily through the air. I think there's a chance they're balanced. I think it's very, very low chance that they go run heavy here. So with an efficient and at least balanced, potentially pass first attack, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are obviously set up for big games. Tyreek Hill leads the NFL in yards per route run. He leads the NFL in yards per route run on non-screen routes as well. So, these are like real targets that he's getting. He's been absolutely fantastic. Jalen Waddle been hyper efficient as well. I think he's starting Mostert in this spot. Again, they could be balanced here. So maybe there's some volume against a really bad Lions run defense, and Mostert has 68% snaps over his last 4 games. He has had his second highest snap share of the year against the Steelers. That knee issue that was laying him on the practice report. Not worried about that. So, yeah, I like Mostert. I think Gesicki.
Famous last word of Mostert, by the way. Not worried about that knee injury at all, guys.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I did. I'm sorry, Mostert. I'm sorry for what's about to happen. Gesicki would be. He's like kind of in a more of a part-time role, and so I think you're like Durham Smythe was back, and that hurt his snaps. He's down below 70% of routes run last week, so. I think he's like kind of more of a borderline play, but the game environment's so good that I do think he's at least in consideration. On the other side, on the Lions, this is like a similar setup to last week when they played the Cowboys, which is obviously not great since they struggled so badly, but it's sort of like the light version of the Cowboys. Similar defense where, you're going to want to have a lot of short passes against them, kind of beat them with like the quick passing game. The pass rush is really the strength of their defense, but the secondary is much more vulnerable, and the pass rush is not nearly as good as the Cowboys. So this actually, I think, sets up pretty well for like the Lions when they're actually playing well and when they actually have Amon-Ra St. Brown in the lineup, which they will this week, unlike last week. So I think he could really feast here. As far as the run defense, it's pretty good on the Dolphins side. But I still think this could be a really good spot for DeAndre Swift as long as he's also involved in that quick passing game. So he's more of a boom-bust option, but I think the boom could be pretty nice. And then TJ Hockenson, I think, is also in a good spot. He's a solid 21% target per route run this year. I don't think he's like a great option, but I actually think this game environment could be pretty fun. I think the Lions could have like a real bounce-back game here as kind of being what they were to start the season, like the fun, bad team. And the Dolphins could be putting up points on the other side and pushing them to the air.
DeAndre Swift, please play. And Amon-Ra, maybe the only silver lining to the concussion that actually was not for Amon-Ra in week 7 is that he got another week to heal up his ankle injury. But we cannot emphasize enough as the Rotoworld Football Show that we need DeAndre Swift to play.
Wasn't he full practice?
Doesn't matter. You can't. I will believe he's playing when I see him on the field. Is basically what I'm saying with DeAndre Swift. Play, DeAndre, play. And we'll be right back after this. Download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today. And just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football, on the NASCAR circuit, and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Packers and Bills in our Sunday night 7. And by the way, Denny and I again, in a Galaxy Brains, we had a shocking opinion on Packers-Bills. We believe Aaron Rodgers will cover and win a Super Bowl, as my colleagues appear to be joking about me in the group chat. Or no, they're joking about the other Pat, it appears.
No, we're joking about you.
Well, Kyle, I'm joking about you because you got the Jaguars game.
It's not a joke, all right? That's serious, and it's messed up that you do that to me.
And Kyle, you also have the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings. It's a 49 total. The Vikings are 3.5-point favorites. Both teams are well rested. The Cardinals coming off their mini bye, Vikings coming off their actual bye. What is popping in this game, Kyle?
Yeah, this game is fine. It's not like an HR level offense for you to give me this game. In fact, 49 total. It's got to be like one of the higher ones this week. And to me, the backfield, I think James Conner will be back. He's back at practice on Wednesday, so it looks like he's back. But I'm not that excited about him. His yards after the catch per reception, his yards per route run are both down from where they were last year. He is at a negative 0.5 rushing yards over expected per attempt. I mean, it looks like an exciting game environment. He was getting a lot of work when he was healthy. He appears to be healthy, as healthy as a player who's going to be active can be at least. So you're probably playing him, but it's almost hard to even expect him to replace the, Benjamin level production. So you're probably playing him. It's not the most exciting, but frankly, the state of running back is not that exciting right now. The exciting part of this offense is DeAndre Hopkins in his first game back from the suspension, 50% target per route run. When he was out there, he was getting the ball. And it wasn't just a situational scheme type of thing. He played on over 90% of the snaps. He also played 42% of his snaps from the slot, which was, there will be a downside to this coming in a minute. There's a setup and a punchline. But for Cliff, it was finally nice to see his clear number one best player schemed in a unique way. On the other hand, it did mean we had to sacrifice Rondale Moore, who moved back to playing almost exclusively on the outside. You can't play Rondale Moore on the outside. He's a 5'7" slot receiver. Did anyone see that fade they threw to him? It was like he was the farthest receiver on the formation. They throw a fade, and he comically bobbles it. And he also got called, I believe, for OPI on that exact same play.
It's just kind of sad, man. I mean, you have this guy who could be used so effectively in the slot, and they use him. It's atrocious. It's like the worst thing Cliff has ever done.
So I thought I had forgiven Cliff for this because the reason that he had more not in the slot was so he didn't play AJ Green. He's like, I'm not playing AJ Green.
Yeah.
And that means I got to get Greg Dortch on the field. Now, Greg Dortch can only play in the slot, so got to put Rondale Moore on the outside. Now, Peter Overzet pointed out, well, if you're using a sacrificial lamb, why did you make it Rondale Moore, Cliff? That's a good point. You should have played Greg Dortch on the outside and kept Rondale Moore in the slot. But I actually, I'm kind of with Cliff that AJ Green shouldn't have been out there, and that part of it makes sense to me.
Yep.
So yeah, this will be a good game, I think.
The other side is the least interesting thing ever because we know exactly what the Vikings are, and it's not interesting in a good way. Justin Jefferson is absolutely that dude. Dalvin Cook, he's given up some routes to Alexander Mattison, but he's still getting nearly all of the carries, and he's doing it pretty efficiently. And the offense is good, so you're totally fine with him giving up some routes. You're still playing him as a RB1. Adam Thielen is like a pretty strong tight end one option. He's got at least 4 catches. I got him. I got that guy good. That professional football player who would just tower over me and is still extremely muscular. I roasted him. He's got at least 4 catches in every game since week 2. He also has not appeared to threaten 100 yards. He's peaked at like 80 something. So yeah, you're probably playing him as like a wide receiver 2-3. Don't expect upside, but the floor is pretty solid.
We are really coming at the professional athletes today who, again, the important thing to remember about professional athletes, they wouldn't just beat you at their own sport. They would beat you at any competitive endeavor. It doesn't matter what it is. Like they would be
better on this podcast than any of us, and they would do it by telling us about like rushing yards over expected per attempt, targets per route run.
In ping pong, I think.
I'm pretty good at ping pong, but there's
way.
not a single player on an NFL active roster.
Come on.
No, they would all crush you.
Some of them must be bad.
No. Every single locker room also has at least one season a ping pong controversy where we're taking the ping pong table out,
Exactly.
Which means for at least 6 games of the year, they had all been playing ping pong in the locker room until they go 1-5 and take it out.
Jeff Wilson would beat me 9-0 in FIFA.
Like I think I'm pretty good at golf, but there's not a single NFL player I could beat in golf.
No, Adam Thielen gets you by 10 strokes at least. That's just in the front 9. So the Commanders and Colts are 2 boring teams who have been forced into big changes. With a 39.5 total in Indianapolis, the Colts will be joining Washington and changing quarterbacks this week, Kyle. I feel it was surprising but not unwarranted for the Colts to move on from Matt Ryan to Sam Ehlinger? How do we expect things to change? And can Ehlinger and a supposed dual threat immediately be counted upon as a streamer? And when you're done talking, you have to throw to Kerrane for the stat of the week because it's a good one.
So I think he can be counted on as far as his individual fantasy production if you need a streamer, because he does look at a guy who should be running a decent amount. In the preseason, just this past preseason, he posted 3 for 71 and 1 on the ground line. And if you take away the awful NCAA practice of counting sack yards as negative rushing yards, he was through 4 college seasons, 2,471 rushing yards and 33 touchdowns. Like, he is a legit dual threat runner. He averaged I think 10 yards per attempt and 4 touchdowns through the air in the 2022 preseason as well. And Matt Ryan was just absolutely dreadful. The bar, I don't know if he can clear it. The guys who go as day 3 quarterbacks and don't get any reps earlier in their career are probably sort of doomed to be practice squad / fringe 53 guys. But Matt Ryan was leading the NFL in sacks, leading the NFL in interceptions, bottom 5 in EPA per play. Like, it was clear that he wasn't the answer. So the bar to clear to keep this offense going is pretty low. So at least from that perspective, he looks like a pretty strong runner. He has a low bar to clear as a passer. And with that, Kerrane, please enlighten us.
Yeah, so this is like sort of a silly stat in a lot of ways, but
being a little goofball over there.
You got to let him finish too. The first half of the stat is not going to tell the whole story.
So the issue with the Colts is, as you laid out, Kyle, a lot of it's to do with pressure. Matt Ryan taking a ton of sacks. The Colts have let up. They're letting up quick pressure at the 24th highest rate per drop back. They rank 27th in pass blocking grade. So pressure. That's the only way he can succeed is if he does well under pressure. Sam Ehlinger in this preseason led all quarterbacks in PFF's quarterback grades under pressure. He was number 1 in PFF's quarterback grades under pressure this preseason. I know it's preseason, but hang on. He was also number 1 in PFF's quarterback grades last preseason. 2 preseasons in a row. This guy's going to crush.
Let's go.
I told Kerrane he would get jeered off the podcast if it had only been this summer. We're like, yeah, I mean, who cares? Like, the most noisy data on the face of the earth. Then when I heard 2 preseasons, I was like, all right, Sam Ehlinger, QB1 this week, and every tourney lineup and every cash lineup.
I am going to play him in DFS. I'm going to do it.
He's only 4K on DraftKings. I'm so excited.
Oh,
goes without saying that he's in every line. It doesn't matter.
With Alec Pierce.
You can tell me his rostership would be 100%. I'm like, well, that's because he's the best player in the league. You got to play.
It's like the Taysom Hill on tight end on FanDuel week. Like, dude, sometimes you just got to play the best plays, bro.
He's a free square. I legit think he's a free square in a Dynasty Superflex league. I bid $777 out of 1,000, and I got him.
He's going to go out and get sacked like 3 times, get pick six, and Matt Ryan's going to close out the game, or Nick Foles will close out the game.
No,
Matt Ryan's
never playing again.
Yeah, Nick Foles is going to close out the game, and you'll get the hang your mission accomplished banner for blowing.
My only memory of Sam Ehlinger from college, when I was frequently watching like Texas, like 11 a.m. Central on ABC, was him having like no regard for his own life. Like, he seemed like one of those guys.
Dang,
I wouldn't watch that. I was watching Notre Dame the whole time. Notre Dame is on NBC. Are they not?
NBC.
Goes without saying. The Domers.
Ellinger averaged 6.5 rushing attempts per game in college. I just want to put it out there.
So Sam, if you're listening,
I went and I looked up Dane Brugler's The Beast. See what he had on him. Comped him to Jalen Hurts. Now, he didn't say this guy's Jalen Hurts, but he said it's a little Jalen Hurtsy. He's kind of a Jalen Hurts guy.
I think I saw someone compare him to on Twitter if Jalen Hurts were very bad.
I retweeted that. Yeah.
What's the comp that I saw?
We'll take it, man. We'll take it.
About that. Kerrane, will we take Jonathan Taylor being back to elite status this week? The Colts are going to have to recommit to the running game, are they not?
So I think that they're going to somewhat recommit to the running game, but I'm not like convinced they just go super run heavy, because here's the thing. Their line is terrible. Their line cannot block. Like,
I still wonder if it's the chicken or the egg thing, and if it's Matt Ryan is making this line appear. Matt Ryan made the Falcons line look like the worst line in the NFL for 3 years, and it was bad. But I'm starting to wonder if this is a Matt Ryan problem and not.
I agree with that from a pass blocking perspective. Like, pressures are so easy to get home on Matt Ryan because his legs take 2 minutes to move each one individual step. But when it comes to run blocking, maybe also having Matt Ryan makes your run blocking versus pass blocking more predictable. But man, Kerrane's onto something here. They've been brutal.
Yeah, lay it on us.
You can disrespect Jeff Wilson and you can disrespect minute per leg Matt Ryan, but you cannot disrespect Jonathan Taylor. Okay, this line ranks 29th in run blocking grade. That's not a chicken or the egg thing. That is this line is terrible at run blocking. Jonathan Taylor's very good. I think. Look, they're willing to try stuff out. They're willing to say Ellinger is going to start the whole season when it's completely unnecessary to do that right now.
Totally unnecessary. It's the whole season. Like
this team's willing to get bold,
Yeah, I know. So they had the perfect cover. He was hurt, Matt Ryan. So it was very interesting that they ordered the cover.
Yeah, I mean the smart move is just we're going to try this guy out and see how it goes. No, we're committed. But look, I mean, I think they seem to kind of understand the hand they've been dealt. The line is not run blocking very well. I don't think they're going to be quite as pass heavy as they were with like the quick passing game with Matt Ryan. That's not going to suit Ellinger as much, but I don't think they'll go super run heavy. And I'm hopeful that they'll continue to involve Jonathan Taylor. He had 8 targets last week. That was a career high. And you got to keep in mind as well that Taylor was tied for his career high. Taylor only played 55% of the snaps last week. So, I mean, he was out there getting targeted at a really high rate. He was also the first read on 14. He had first read target on 14% of his routes. That was twice his previous season high. So, Ellinger's maybe not going to be doing as many checkdowns. There's not going to be as many quick throws. But, if the Colts are calling plays designed to get Taylor the ball, then I think, he'll be just as competent at doing that as Matt Ryan, hopefully. So, I think that, what we saw last week is a signal to some extent that they're looking to get Taylor involved in a way that doesn't rely so much on this terrible run blocking line. I think Taylor's back to kind of being, at least a very high end RB1, if not like true elite.
Time to win some best ball leagues. Am I right? Right, folks? I know.
No, you're talking to at least 2 people who are taking CMC first.
Yeah.
I know.
I mixed it up.
I've never drafted Jonathan Taylor.
Denny, sorry that NBC Legal has deemed you our Commanders expert, but that is what you are. What did we notice with the Commanders passing attack and Taylor Heineke's first game back under center last weekend?
That it was so good? No. So, all right. They did what they did last year with Heinicke, which is just completely hide the quarterback, which is a viable strategy when you have Taylor Heinicke under center. Washington was 12% under their expected pass rate last week against the Packers. Only the Panthers and Falcons were more run heavy than the Commanders last week. Like I said, this is what they did in 2021, especially when they had that little hot streak, the weird 4 or 5 game winning streak. They beat the Bucs somewhere in there. It was just wild to watch, but they went super run heavy. This fueled 20 carries for Robinson and 10 carries for Gibson last week against the Packers. Now, I will say Antonio Gibson has been far more effective than Brian Robinson by every metric over the past 2 games, and it's a shame that doesn't matter, and it's a shame that Gibson being their best running back does not matter. But what can we do? What are you going to say, Pat?
Maybe they just found maybe a non-actual serious comment on that. Maybe they're just finding his niche finally, and maybe he really shouldn't be an every down, a bell cow type, and maybe he's best suited to be a really good change of pace because, the Brian Robinson pace has not been too great the past 2 weeks, and Antonio Gibson, you could say, changed it in ways that were good.
Shouldn't you use the better pace and then change to a bad pace?
You would think, healthy? But they love Brian Robinson more than any franchise loves any player. Gibson, by the way, ran 12 routes against the Packers, which is not much. But let's see, McKissick only ran 10 routes and Brian Robinson ran 8. So I think that is something, maybe, possibly. Also, Terry McLaurin, 100% route rate. That's nothing new, but he tied Curtis Samuel for the team lead with 8 targets last week. McLaurin was used in the slot 35% of his routes. That's an increase over his usual usage there. That might give him some more intermediate looks to kind of smooth over the rougher weeks when he doesn't hit on a downfield shot from Heinicke. Maybe the Commanders will be a little more pass heavy this week against the Colts defense that has allowed the 11th highest EPA per dropback. But I wouldn't count on it. I think we're going to see tons of running again from Washington.
I know we're not into like QB wins, but what about wide receiver wins? Do we care about that as a metric? Because Terry McLaurin literally won that game for
stickiest stat out there is wide receiver wins.
Our friend Davis Maddock engaged in wide receiver wins one time, and it didn't go well for him.
That sounds like something Davis would get himself into.
When OBJ made his catch and the Giants lost. That's all I remember that.
Well, Davis, maybe the worst take of Davis's career was being an OBJ truther. And he doubled, tripled, quadrupled down a few times, and it just kept not working until finally started working after like 5 years. But Davis, yeah, you were wrong about OBJ. Sorry about that one. The fresh off the most stunning upset of the season, the Carolina. We're not sure which Carolina Panthers arrive in Atlanta as 4.5-point underdogs. Denny, what do people need to know about this game?
Oh gosh, thanks. I appreciate this one. Yeah, well, DJ Moore is back by default, as you may have discovered last week, when he caught 7 passes for 69 yards and a touchdown. He was targeted on 48%. I'm sorry, he had a 48% target share and a 47% air yard share last week against the Bucs. That is quite a lot. He was 10th among all wide receivers in expected fantasy points in Week 7. He's suddenly in what the Zoomers are calling a smash spot against an Atlanta defense, allowing the league's 3rd highest EPA per dropback. So you are once again playing DJ Moore, no questions asked in 12-team leagues. Let's see.
Team strong. I do have questions still.
Yeah,
about starting DJ Moore. No, I'm just saying. Yeah, I mean,
I also have some questions.
Yeah. What are our questions about DJ Moore?
I don't know.
Is he going to score any points? Are there going to be more than 20?
No. Is he going to continue to make Deontay Johnson look like Randy Moss?
I was going to say, you guys, well, I don't know about you guys. It's definitely Kerrane was like, you start Deontay Johnson because he gets a bunch of targets and scores no points. Right. But you can't do the same with DJ Moore.
Where am I from? Am I from Chicago there?
He's a Yinzer. You're from Pittsburgh.
Correct. You start all the bad targets, guys. Every single one of them. Get them in the lineup.
He's going to be jam targets, 10 to 12 targets this week. Just get him in there.
I don't know if you saw
Kyle, on our DFS preview, Kyle said he wouldn't start DJ Moore if he knew for a fact that he was getting 9 targets last week.
McCaffrey hadn't been traded yet.
Now he had
been traded.
He was traded.
Yes. Yes, that's why we knew he was going to get a bunch of targets. Now I'm suddenly getting Midwest mocked over here.
And you are not.
Guys, I gotta go. I actually have a thing. I have a haircut to get.
Well, I don't know what is that. Seriously, what is that accent that Kyle's doing?
Wait a sec. But I have more. I have more DJ Moore stuff. A league high 76% of yards gained against Atlanta have come via the pass. All right. If they're going to gain yards, it's going to be through the air, I believe.
You can just say 76 yards. You don't have to. It's 100.
76%. Come on.
Yeah, 100.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah. And then quickly,
for whatever reason, we decided to shout you down on DJ Moore.
Sorry.
But no. This is the only time that I can talk positively about him. So, on the other side of the ball, since week 5, Tyler Algier is 11th in rushing attempts in the league, and Caleb Huntley is 25th in rushing attempts. That is how much the Falcons are running the ball, as we saw last week when they were running the ball down 3 scores in the third quarter, or maybe the second quarter even. Carolina,
they were down 21-0 5 seconds into the second quarter. And then they had a 10-minute, 16-play drive where they scored a touchdown, and then the Bengals scored a touchdown in 4 minutes to retake a 3 touchdown.
Right. So obviously it doesn't matter what's going to happen in this game. The Falcons are going to run it so much, and that makes Drake London and Kyle Pitts borderline options, and it makes, I mean, really like I'm easily starting like Cade Otton over Kyle Pitts.
I'm going to be engaging and trying to get my co-managers to start Greg Dulcich over Kyle Pitts, and I think I'm going to win that argument.
You should.
Man, we used to be a country. So
well, we have a question here. Do I start Juwan Johnson over Pitts? I say yes.
No.
I say yes.
That feels a little.
Yeah, that feels too far, man.
Why? Well, Juwan Johnson's going to run 35 routes.
Kyle Pitts ran like facts and logic. Kyle Pitts is good.
Have you seen his stats? I thought good players put up good stats, but what do I know?
Denny might be right. They're gonna throw. They threw 13 attempts, right? 13 attempts last week.
Yes,
that's crazy. They were losing so bad the whole game.
Denny, the rule is
150 yards. 150 yards since week 3. Like they don't care. They do not care if the opponent puts up 10 points. They lose. That's just what it is.
The reason that you're not supposed to say that is because you're just not supposed to make us sad. We all know you're supposed to start Juwan Johnson over Kyle Pitts, okay? But you don't say it. And then you don't do it either because it makes you sad. That's the only reason. I don't know. I guess we're done talking about this game. Well, Caleb Huntley not practicing or something.
I feel like I owe Denny and DJ Moore an apology because I you can pass on Atlanta. They're a massive pass funnel, but I'm just like so grossed out by what I know Atlanta's going to do on that side of the game.
Atlanta's going to have the ball for 41 minutes.
Yeah, man. It makes it so hard to get excited about Carolina. Again, this is the Carolina Panthers, so I'm already extremely not excited.
Shy Smith takeover, right?
But it is a pretty good spot matchup-wise.
What if we called this show 4 young to middle-aged men turn into the Joker and take turns out jokering each other? Because we've really reached a degenerate place.
We have been jokering pretty
And when you said young to middle-aged, do you mean like all of us or that you're young and we're middle-aged?
I think that's what
Kerrane, you look pretty young. You've got such a youthful face still.
I'm older than Pat.
I know. Slightly older than me. It's because the Northeast, you never go outside. You're sitting in your apartment all the time in New York City because you can't go outside because of the smog, the choking smog or something.
New York City keeps you young.
Yeah. So New York famously keeps you young. Anyways, the Raiders, the Saints, 2 teams confused about their offensive identities, square off in New Orleans, Patrick Kerrane, and what will hopefully be a high-scoring affair. Devontae Adams apparently isn't practicing, but it's like an illness or something, aka like they'll fake some coronavirus tests and he'll play. What's going on in this game, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting setup because the Raiders have really kind of shifted towards being a run first, I should say. Maybe not run heavy, but definitely run first and slow team. They have a -1% pass rate over expected this season, but they've trended down all year. They also have a -6% pass rate over expected on first down, which I think can kind of signal like what a team is prioritizing. They're definitely prioritizing the run. They're ranked 26th in pass rate over expected on first down. Their pace has dropped to 26th. They were actually fairly fast-paced to begin the year, but they've really slowed down. So those kind of, to me, go hand in hand. If you're trending toward the run, you're trending toward being slow. It's kind of like they're shifting their identity, and we've seen them kind of build the offense a bit around Josh Jacobs over the last few weeks. That's worked extremely well. So the reason this is kind of interesting, though, is that they're now going up against the Saints defense where it makes a lot of sense to pass. They rank 29th in EPA allowed per dropback. They rank 22nd in dropback success rate. They don't pressure the quarterback well at all. They rank dead last in quick pressure rate. So to me, like, the Adams stuff is really critical because if Adams is there, I think he is set up for a really, really big game. But I don't really have that much interest in the ancillary pieces, assuming he's good to go. He leads the NFL in first read targets per route. That does not leave a lot of room for anybody else. And you're also looking at Hunter Renfrow was only out there for 71% route participation last week. So it's like Renfro's really set up very poorly. He's kind of a volume dependent guy. Adams is truly a target hog, just as he was in Green Bay. I would start Waller if we get him, but that's mostly about the tight end position. On the ground, if they do decide to go run heavy, Josh Jacobs should be set up pretty well again, but I would keep in mind, like with Josh Jacobs, that he's definitely like a high-end RB1, but if someone's like ready to buy into him as like the RB1, I'd be moving off that. He's running hotter than the sun in efficiency right now. PFF's expected points model gives him an expected 2.5 touchdowns over his last 3 games. He's scored 6. So he is really, really racking up those touchdowns, and that's had obviously a huge effect on his fantasy output. If you look at like all the kind of the nerd loser over expected metrics, he doesn't do that well. He's good, but he's not like off the charts elite. This isn't like a Nick Chubb type of season where you're just like, oh my God, this guy's the best rusher in the league or anything. He's not. That's not what's happening. He's a good running back, and the team is riding him in a big way, and it's working out. But I would just kind of keep him in your mind. Like I think he's sort of like a mid RB1, and then On the Saints side, we're getting Andy Dalton. He's going against a defense that ranks 31st in EPA per dropback. I think we're looking at a big target share, air yard share, all of that for Chris Olave. Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas still not practicing. Olave has 2.46 yards per outrun this season, which is awesome for anybody. It's crazy good for a rookie. He's running cold in yards per target. He is actually slightly underperforming his target volume on a per route basis. I mean, he looks like a total smash in this spot. And then when you look at Kamara, he also set up super well with Dalton. He has 22.8 expected points per game in 4 games with Dalton. That leads the NFL over that stretch. No one is higher in the NFL all season. That's driven by a 24% target share in those 3 games. The Raiders are pretty decent against the run, but who cares? We're getting the good Kamara. We're getting the receiver Kamara again. I don't think this is a game generally where I want to like be digging into ancillary pieces, but the studs here I think are set up for really big games.
It's hard to get excited about Kamara, by the way, when we're getting Andy Dalton. But that's the price we must pay. So, and he targets him. So it's like kind of only death can pay for life. We got rid of the exciting passer for the exciting Kamara.
The check down artist. That's what we need.
The check down king. Our check down king. The Patriots and Jets were 2 teams that exited week 7 with more questions than answers, Denny. The Pats are probably more fascinating, but we will begin with the Jets, who have seen their run-first world rocked by the loss of Breece Hall. How do we expect them to compensate with Michael Carter and the newly acquired James Robinson?
Yeah, James Robinson is practicing. Robert Saleh said on Wednesday, I believe, that they would bring him along slowly. I would expect him to play this week against the Patriots. But
as I've already established, it's the easiest thing in the world to change teams and get running back touches. So.
You're right. This is the Pat Daugherty line of thinking. You know?
If Robinson gets 20 touches this week, it's going to be a real bad look for me.
Yeah, right. He got to New York, and Robert Saleh said, "You're a running back. You get back there, you get the ball, you run." You know, that's
really pretty simple.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, the Jets are just doing their best to hide Zach Wilson, who has been horrific. They are -10, -5, and -6 in pass rate over expected over the past 3 games. Michael Carter, I think, will be more usable this week than he will be going forward because of the James Robinson factor. But Carter had 32% of the rushes over the past 3 games for New York. I would guess that bumps up over 50% here, but Robert Saleh is talking a lot about Ty Johnson weirdly this week, so I'm a little hesitant there. Breece Hall is vacating only an 8% target share since Wilson took over. So it's not like the good old days with Joe Flacco where Michael Carter and Breece Hall were combining for 30% target share. No more of that. So I actually think Michael Carter does not have a lot of PPR value, even with the Breece Hall injury. So I'm as much as I am a Michael Carter guy, I'm a little bit hesitant to say he's an RB2.
Sounds like you're saying Ty Johnson in a GPP, by the way.
I mean, look, Robert Saleh, he actually twice on Wednesday during his press conference, he mentioned the running backs, and he started both times with Ty Johnson. I'm just saying.
It is weird. It does seem like a situation where they do not like Michael Carter as much as we do.
No, they don't. Well, even though the offensive coordinator called him the heartbeat of our team.
And they weren't going to he hadn't been phased out of the offense or anything, even with Breece Hall going nuts. But I was not surprised. I was surprised when it was 1 day later that they went out and traded for James Robinson. I knew that they were going to add to this backfield and that they weren't going to trust Michael Carter as a 20-touch player. I was surprised at just how vigorous their pursuit was.
Yeah, it's not a great not a great thing for those of us who have Michael Carter and thought, oh, hey, look, I have an RB2.
Kerrane, are there any Jets pass catchers we can trust right now? Or, I mean, Corey Davis probably not playing this week with an MCL injury, but as Denny laid out, it's just a horrible, horrible passing attack.
Yeah, you really can't. I don't think you can trust any of these guys. You had last week, we had Garrett Wilson in kind of a great spot where Corey Davis only ran a route on 31% of dropbacks because he was hurt. And you didn't have Elijah Moore out there. Garrett Wilson ran a route on 88% of dropbacks, which is good. It's not like crazy elite though. I would have liked to see him up in the 90s, given that he was clearly the only guy left. And he wasn't targeted. He only had 4 targets, targeted on 14% of his routes. That's not good. 17% target share. I think maybe even the most concerning thing, 6% air yard share with a 1.8 ADOT. So you go, how did that happen? Well, he had 4 targets. 2 of them came on screens. So that's like, they're not even, unless they just say that this target is going to Garrett Wilson, Zach Wilson's like not throwing to him. It's just, it's a really concerning situation. He just does not seem to have any rapport with Zach Wilson, which I blame squarely on Zach Wilson, since Garrett Wilson looked like a superstar before, Joe Flacco was out of there. So you cannot trust any of these guys. Elijah Moore will be back, and I think that's enough to make you worried, honestly, about Wilson's routes as well as the targets, which aren't there anyway.
Kyle, the Patriots, I just wrote various acronyms in our show sheet because I just don't even know what to say about them. Mac Jones has been announced as the starter. Are there any Patriots pass catchers to like beyond Jacoby Myers? And I'm assuming we have complete faith that Mac Jones will finish this game after, again, Denny and I talked extensively about Bill Belichick basically turning into a poster and playing a Bailey Zappi over Mac Jones in week 7. But anyone beyond Jacoby Myers that we can care about in the Patriots passing attack?
I mean, you could, if you were scouting the box scores, look at Devontae Parker, 60 yards in back-to-back games, but both of those came from long Zappi throws, and we haven't seen Mac Jones be a particularly elite downfield thrower. So I'd say no. Like, if you're in a really bad spot, I'd probably take Parker over, the receivers on the other side of this game. But I just set the lowest bar I could possibly clear, so I didn't really say much with that. I really think Jacoby Myers, who has been the clear focal point of the passing attack, 31% air yard share, 23% target share, despite the changes at quarterback, despite the run-heavy approach, he's the only guy you care about. The tight ends, now that both Jonnu and Hunter Henry are healthy, I'm not playing either of them either.
Quickly, does anyone have any touch of gray for Ramondre Stevenson? He's dominated snaps, touches, catches over to Damian Harris. Is that maybe a fluke, just easing Damian Harris back in, or is it still all systems go for Ramondre? Kerrane, I see you nodding more vigorously than the other two, so weigh in.
I mean, he's what we want. That's not that many exciting things happening this season. Breece Hall goes down. There's been some horrible things. Ramondre Stevenson, he was used as an actual RB1 even with Harris healthy. I mean,
he was, but things were so off the rails, the Patriots thing. I just wouldn't be surprised if nothing from that game was sticky. And we come back this week and Bill Belichick's like, yep, it's back to the 2-man backfield.
Yeah, it was Harris's first game back from an injury that when it first happened was supposed to be a multiple week injury. I think he was probably healthy, but I don't know. Bill Belichick's a real goober with that kind of thing. I'm waiting to be hurt. It's not that I don't believe that Ramondre is clearly playing a role worthy of top 15 RB status, but I've been hurt before, and it will certainly happen at some point.
It's not just last week though. Last week was awesome. He had a 19.8 expected points workload, delivering 23.8 fantasy points. But if you look at there's 4 weeks now where he's outsnapped Damian Harris. Week 1, it was Harris. And then there's 4 other weeks where he's outsnapped a healthy Harris. In those 4 weeks, he ranks RB 13 with 14.8 expected points per game. So I think that, it could definitely come back from kind of the superstar workload that he was getting last week. But that's still a low end RB1 type of workload that we would be projecting for him. And the guy's been efficient. So Don't take this away from me, Pat.
Please don't hurt us, Bill Belichick. I will be financially ruined if this gets taken away from us. So
you said you lose your house.
Yeah, I need Ramondre Stevenson to continue with these workloads.
I'm praying for you.
I will be unhoused. The Titans and Texans are this week's Stay Awake special at 40.5 points. Kyle, what, if anything, do the people need to know about this game?
Nah, skip. I got another skipper, unfortunately. Pulled the roulette wheel, and this one just said Titans, Texans. Now, Titans, Derrick Henry in the past 3 weeks is number 1 in rushing expected points. He has a bye week snuck in there. They're giving him so much work that he can take a game off and be the highest running back in terms of the amount of fantasy points he should score on the ground. And through the air, he's not bad either. 4 targets per game over his past 4 contests. I think he's in that Josh Jacobs, not elite tier of running back, not quite Eckler or what we think McCaffrey will become. At least I think he'll become that. But he's right there as the next a top 4 or 5 fantasy running back. The other side of the ball, Dameon Pierce, top 10 in PFF rushing grade, top 10 in yards after carry per attempt, and top 10 in carries of 10 plus yards. He is avoiding tackles. He's breaking long runs. He's getting yards after contact. And he's running more routes than Rex Burkhead. That changed a little bit last week, but I'm not sure how sticky that is over the past 4 weeks. It has still been Dameon Pierce. So, both the running backs are locked in RB top 5 and top 15, at least respectively. There's one receiver worth playing in this game. It's Brandon Cooks. And even that is a bit on thin ice right now. Since week 3, Brandon Cooks has a 19% target share and 21% of the air yards. The only upside is that Nico Collins doesn't look like he's playing. Hasn't been ruled out yet, but he's not practicing. So we can assume he's not playing. That's a lot of targets to go around. Admittedly, they're Davis Mills targets from the Houston Texans offense. So
2 of the most surprising teams in the league, the Giants and the Seahawks, Denny, square off in Seattle with kind of a middle of the road, 45 total. Not too bad, but could maybe be higher. What do we need to know about this game?
Marquise Goodwin had a big week last week, 4 catches on 5 targets, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. All Marquise Goodwin does when he gets playing time is score fantasy points. Him and Jamal Agnew are guys that I just do not understand how they don't have full-time gigs somewhere in the NFL. Nevertheless, DK Metcalf.
That's why we call you Urban Carter.
Doug Peterson.
I'm saying Urban believed in Jamal Agnew is what I'm saying.
I see. Yes, me and Urban are on the same wavelength then.
Very similar people.
All right. So real quick, DK Metcalf probably won't play this week. He is
it's a legit HR violation.
See, you compared one of your coworkers to Urban Meyer. He said I committed an HR violation, because I did.
I see. Well,
but I can commit them with impunity against you because they want you out.
You're fired.
They want you out.
Metcalf accounts for 25% of the team's targets, 34% of the team's air yards. So it's just a huge vacancy there. I think it makes Lockett way more appealing. I think it makes, obviously, Goodwin, who, by the way, was the only, and I checked this 3 times just to make sure, he was the only other receiver besides Metcalf and Lockett who ran a route last week for the Seahawks. So I looked. I see Kerrane is.
I swear I heard D. Eskridge's name last week.
Probably muffing a punt or something.
I didn't see maybe any route running. It was Parkinson, Fant, Disley, the running backs, but it was good one anyway. So I do think that he's locked into that wide receiver 2 role for the time being, as Kyle and Pat check my data here.
They're fact checking you really hard.
I think I know what happened.
What happened?
PFF doesn't always report the routes unless a player was targeted.
Really?
It's the Rashad Penny conundrum. I'll never forget Kerrane saying we can't find data on Rashad Penny because he has to catch a pass before registering on any database. He's not blipping on the radar.
If you know to look, you have to know to look and go to their player page and see if they were targeted.
Well, folks, this is just more evidence that I need to watch the games.
D. Eskridge ran 14 routes last week.
God bless America. All right. Well, I do like Goodwin a lot. Daniel Jones is a good streaming option. 4th most quarterback rushing attempts this year. Seattle defense is allowing 22 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks. The rushing stuff is a little bit iffy. You definitely can't bank on Daniel Jones running 10 times a game for 100 yards or anything, but it helps. It helps in an otherwise muted passing attack. Obviously, you're starting Ken Walker. Obviously, Saquon is in a fantastic spot against a really bad Seattle run defense. I don't know if there's anything else to say about this game, except for the Giants are really bad against tight ends. So take your pick, Fant or Disley. I prefer Disley because the team just loves him that much, and that's analytics.
There's now a vigorous discussion in our internal chat if D. Eskridge's target counted or not. It appears it may have been called back.
I just don't understand why we all got bullied in high school. There's just something about I don't get it.
Great school for me. High school was fun.
Yeah. Did not get bullied. I do regret a few things I did to my younger brother's friends. I will say that. A few people I pushed into a bush.
If you're listening.
Probably shouldn't have done that. Jimmy Orff, I don't know why I slammed you so hard under your brother's car hood. That probably hurt really bad.
Were you in the mob?
It's our friends' little brothers, every once in a while you got to scare someone and pushing them into a bush.
So you were in the mob. Your friends' little brothers weren't paying up their debts.
Yeah, you get excited. The kids these days, you get expelled. Sure, if you push someone in a bush and give them a concussion for no reason. No, he didn't get a concussion.
Call them Urban Meyer.
Yeah. But Jimmy Orff, I'm sorry if you got scratched and I did that. Moving on. finally allowing their battle station to operate at full power. The Bengals arrive in Cleveland as relatively modest 3.5-point favorites, Kerrane. There are questions to answer with the Browns, but I think the ones that fantasy managers really want to know what this game is, will the Bengals keep up their offensive approach from the past 2 weeks?
Definitely not. They're definitely not going to do it.
Man.
And look, and that's okay. Okay.
No, it's not.
We have to just accept the glory that we got from this is a Zach Taylor operation. Okay. Like they're not going to just pass at a crazy heavy rate every week. They have been passing at a crazy heavy week. They had a crazy heavy rate. They had a 21% pass rate of expected in week 6. That was the highest of the season. Is now no longer the highest of the season because the Bengals topped it last week with 23% against the pass funnel Falcons. I think they're going to have to downshift. They're playing the third biggest run funnel in the league in the Browns defense. It would be honestly like weird if they did it, if they went from a pass funnel to a run funnel and then continued this approach. But my hope is that they're going to have learned a couple things from their 2-week dalliance with the pass, and maybe they'll keep some of that aggressiveness, and they won't just try to slam Joe Mixon into the line, but they'll be kind of a solidly pass first team, but one that is still game planning for this opponent. And you can really run on the Browns.
You can really, really, really run on the Cleveland Browns. So we're just praying that they don't. Because Joe Mixon, talking about players who have not been good this season, Joseph Mixon, he's not playing well, Kyle. And what should Pat has laid out all the reasons why they probably will run this week. I mean, can we call him an RB1 this week?
Pat, didn't I sort of hand that off to Kyle there?
Maybe I was zoned out and not paying attention.
Maybe I've become the Joker.
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
You can really run on the Browns, Kyle.
But yeah, all that stuff Kerrane said's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We should be grateful for the few fleeting moments we got with the fun Bengals. We should not expect it to last forever. That's not who Zach Taylor is. Never will be. Joe Mixon, I just realized your prompt is just Joe Mixon has not been playing well. And you're right about that. But the thing is, much like with the Deontay Johnson jokering, much like with the DJ Moore jokering, we chase the guys who get the ball a lot. And Joe Mixon is getting the ball just an inordinate amount. He is right now second in the NFL, just barely behind Austin Eckler in rushing plus receiving expected fantasy points. He's averaging 3.9 catches per game. And even though they've been super pass heavy in their recent games, because that is good, it has actually resulted in him scoring touchdowns in 3 of his past 4 games. And when you play for, offense that is absolutely humming, even if they're going to run a little more this game, and you get the ball a crazy amount, yeah, he's definitely an RB1.
Unfortunately, we have some breaking news about this game, by the way, where apparently Jamar Chase's hip injury may land him on injured reserve. He could miss 4 to 6 weeks. This is the most disgusting update I've ever shared in my life. God. This is via ESPN's Adam Schefter. I actually think I might cry.
Dang, that's brutal.
I feel like Cronkite right now.
I actually think I might cry. Yeah, I know. I mean, I know. I'm just looking at the clock to see the time where I announced the bulletin.
Yeah, not this. Like the week after we lost Breece Hall, it's just a rough one, man.
Man, it's 4 to 6 weeks, but man, this does actually sink like several of my teams.
As the kids say, we can't have anything nice.
No.
So what does that mean? Tyler Boyd, sure.
Oh yeah, no, Tyler Boyd for sure.
Tyler Boyd wins again.
Also, they're going to go. Pat Kerrane's right. They're going run heavy now.
They are going to go. Yeah. Now they're going. Now they're just attacking the run funnel.
Super run heavy.
The thing with Chase is that he's still getting double teamed a ton. He was still getting double teamed a ton, and so yes, it's going to be good for T. Higgins, but I think he's going to have to take on a lot more defensive attention. So I don't think it's like awesome for T. Higgins. It's probably like a wash. And then it's good for Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst will kind of move up the target pecking order a little bit, but they'll run a lot more.
Might cry. Thought I might cry. Denny, what's going on with Donovan Peoples-Jones? Why does he keep getting so many targets?
I don't know. He's out there. He's running. He's running a lot of routes. In the right game script. When the Browns are chasing points in the second half, he's generally gotten a good number of looks. Not so much downfield stuff, actually, when I was looking into it very strongly, it's Amari Cooper seems to be the preferred downfield target for Jacoby Brissett. But, David Njoku being out, even though he's pretending he's not out, but he's out, I'm pretty sure. I mean, he was in a boot and crutches after the game against the Ravens. That should open up some targets for him. And then Harrison Bryant becomes a very interesting streaming option. But I do think Peoples-Jones is still a very volatile wide receiver 3 type option.
I guess, I don't know, maybe add Hayden Hurst, by the way. I mean, not for this week. I mean, if Jamar Chase is out 4 to 6 weeks, which, I mean, I'm assuming he is, Adam Schefter reported it. God, man. Yep. Thought I might cry. One more game left to get through. Kerrane. The Bears and their league best rushing attack arrive in Dallas as heavy 9.5-point underdogs after roughing up the New England Patriots. What is sticking out from this game?
Yeah, so this, I mean, I don't want to be like a real bummer here with the Bears. I know Justin Fields, finally looked good, and they also used him a lot on designed runs. He was not getting used at all on design runs of the last few weeks, and then I believe he had 12 last week. So pretty strong usage there. So that's nice. And the Cowboys are the 4th biggest run funnel in the league, so the Bears are going to love that. So that part of it's all good. The bad part is this pass rush, which I think is just going to absolutely blow up anything that the Bears try to do through the air. The Cowboys rank 1st in pass rush grade. They rank 1st in quick pressure rate. And Fields has been horrific at inviting pressure, not just getting pressured, but like looking at PFF, they chart who has allowed the pressure, and Fields is allowing pressure on 10.6% of his dropbacks this season. That's the highest rate in the league. It's also significantly higher than every other quarterback the Cowboys have faced this season. It's over 1.5 times higher than Daniel Jones and Jalen Hurts. Over 4 times as high as the allowed pressure rate for Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. 8 times as high as Matthew Stafford. 10 times as high as Joe Burrow. Tom Brady, by the way, not been charged with allowing a pressure all season. So, I don't know, man. I think Fields is going to get absolutely crushed by this pass rush. I think we're going to see a lot of runs. David Montgomery, though, his snaps were down to 56% last week as they got Khalil Herbert more involved. Montgomery was the guy around the goal line at least, but he's going to be very touchdown dependent, and they could really struggle to move the chains. On the Cowboys side, we do have Tony Pollard week. That's exciting. Running back 5 in rush yards over expected per attempt, just behind Nick Chubb, just ahead of Breece Hall and Saquon Barkley. He's also running back 5 in breakaway percentage. He's only running back 17 in success rate. So type of guy, could be kind of boom bust, could be, maybe like Kenneth Walker-y where, he's getting stuffed, nothing's happening, and then he rips off a long run. But I think that's totally fine in this matchup. 9.5-point home favorites facing a massive run funnel in the Bears. I think he's going to get a lot of work in this game, even if he's spelled throughout the game. Like, we don't even need him to have like a gigantic share of snaps, gigantic share of team attempts. There's going to be a lot of rushing attempts to go around here for the Cowboys, I think. As far as the passing game goes, Lamb is the only guy I'm really interested in. I think low volume game overall. I don't think the Bears have any chance of pushing the Cowboys, but Lamb has such a nice slice of this passing offense with a 32% target share and 39% air yard share. He's tied with Devontae Adams for the 4th highest Whopper in the league. He's been pretty efficient this year with 2.17 yards per route run. That's an elite number, but he's actually underperforming his target volume. Ran around on 98% of dropbacks this year. He could run a little hot in yards per target and, have a big game even if there's not much passing volume in this game.
By the way, so Tony Pollard has never exceeded 14 carries or 18 touches in a game. That will hopefully be put to the test this week. Maybe
have we gotten this? I've wanted this for so long now. I'm wondering. We've never really had a game where Zeke was out, right?
No,
we had one. We had one game. We had one game.
Okay.
Pollard broke off like a 40-yard run after struggling for 2 quarters, and all the people who jammed him got the laugh in the faces of their opponents.
But that's kind of the
something
play.
I've heard. I don't know, something like
that. That is kind of the play, right? You're looking for that 40-yard run. If you don't get it, maybe it'll be a disappointment. But I think we'll get it.
But the Cowboys' number 3 running back, according to Michael Gelkin of the Dallas Morning News, who DM'd me, is Malik Davis. There was like a little confusion over who the number 3 running back is. Quadre Olison is like on the practice squad or something, but Malik Davis will apparently be the number 2 running back.
The number
Sunday.
2 or the number?
Number 2. If Zeke does not play,
right.
Which doesn't seem like he's going to play. So Malik Davis will probably be the number 2 running back for the Dallas Cowboys. But Justin Fields. But my only take, Justin Fields, I think I kind of talked about this. I talked about this with Kyle and Lawrence. Justin Fields, I feel like got very, very lucky on Monday Night Football. The Bears went 11 of 18 on third down. Like, that just doesn't happen. And like a staggering number of those were like third and longs. For Kerrane kind of highlighted a lot of the reasons. I think it could be like a big wake up call. But he has had 80 rushing yards in back-to-back weeks. And that seems to have been kind of intentional too. I mean,
I think so.
More intentional.
He in week 4, 0 design rushes. Week 5 and 6, 2 each, and then 12 last week. So they kind of woke up. You know, it's like, we have an athletic quarterback.
Well, he has 35 rushing attempts over his past 3 games. I mean, that's what we desperately wanted in August. We got it.
Yeah, they will not be going 11 of 18 on third down against this Dallas Cowboys defense. 18 is a lot of third downs to have in a game, like a lot. But anyways. I mean, just again, I feel like Walter Cronkite has got to end the show after the Jamar Chase news.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say because I mean, I'm bankrupt now. I'll just be honest with you. This beautiful home behind me, this plant by the door, it's gone. So I hope you're happy.
I don't know if you know this, but I tend to draft wide receivers in the first round. And, Jamar Chase was one of the ones I like the most. So
this beautiful plant is gone.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is where we living.
Yeah.
Does NBC have a house for me?
I think there's actually some obscure bylaws in our employment agreement. We can live in the office if we move to Stanford.
Okay. I'll be there in about 6 hours.
We are allowed to have the wide receiver drafting shanty pop up.
Could we I just need to expense, like, I need a new mouse and like my laptop needs a little repair and a flight because I don't have a car anymore. The offices that we're living in.
So yep, that's where our heads are at right now. So check out all of our amazing content on the site, the walkthrough, waivers, 32 stats, the rankings. Denny, what's your Friday article called again? I always forget. Sorry, I'm not sorry.
Funneling fantasy points.
The funneling. Denny loves to funnel. He loves the funneling.
We do.
It's a very valuable article, actually. Check out the DFS chat with Pat and Kyle. Just check it all out, including the latest news and updates, which include Jamar Chase being out 4 to 6 weeks with a hip injury. So for Pat Kerrane, for Denny Carter, for Kyle Dvorchak, I am Patrick Daugherty. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you later.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.